Did you see?
We're just waiting a few more minutes to get some more people here, so we can hopefully get quorum, so just.
There was an article in today's paper, people, about today's meeting, what we're doing today. Yes?
Yes,
Grim warning about rents and crumbling housing stock.
Yeah.
Arguments for both sides.
Yeah.
Did anybody read this?
I didn't read that one, but I saw one about.
Which one is it?
There's still an echo. Oh,
This is
Do you mind?
quotable magazine. It's the New York Times, I think. They quote it. There you went. Here's what it is. I got my health.
Almost there, almost there.
almost all. So Julie, and then no one's online?
No panelists here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do hear it.
There's nobody who would
Yeah.
count for.
Now we hear it again.
I just text Kristen to sleep, he's fine.
So it's not muting your outbound, it's just turning the sound on your computer off.
I turned it on.
Oh, okay. Right.
So you are, just so you know, no longer muted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and could we do
When
the
I
name?
turn my audio and video on, do I also have to turn my?
You hear that, Mike? What's your name? So.
Yes.
His name is Iran.
My name is Yara,
Okay.
or Nare, if that
Well,
one.
not right. You can call it not right.
Okay, that's one.
This one, well,
One
oh, that's
option.
on my keypad.
I'm just saying, when it's my turn, do I turn the volume on my? laptop?
No,
No.
'cause these
Only
will,
The audio of it.
Yeah.
and-
correct, because these will pick up your voice. At some point, we can, yeah.
I think we'll just kind of start, people to trickle in, so.
Okay.
This is I'm vice chair, so I'm first time chairing, just wanted to say that, welcome to the May 27th. Budget Education Civil Services, TBD, City Services, I mean, TBD, new name.
Right.
Of Manhattan Community Board 5, my name is Tiffany Brevis, I'm the vice chair, filling in for Mohit, who is out of the country. We're just gonna say everybody's names because we have some new people and fresh faces, so. Again, I'm Tiffany Revis.
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 That was, okay, sorry.
I'm Yaron Noni Victor.
I'm Michael Greeley.
And I'm Michael Kabak.
Yeah, you guys, even though you're not
You're
on the
on
committee, but you're on the board.
Stewart. Andrea.
So are we all living members except,
Yes.
Board members, yes, they don't know what committees they're on yet.
They're new
They might be on
members,
Max, they might not, but yes.
We'll see. Or whatever our new name is. So tonight we have 2 items on our agenda. The first item, we'll have a presentation by the New York City Council bill for the 1096, which is in relation to protecting the vested health insurance coverage and contributions of retired employees of the city of New York. And then second item, tonight will be discussion of rent guideline, for proposed rent increases. Just because we have new people, and because I need to hear myself say it, so I remember. So we go over how the meetings ran. Each item on the agenda will be presented. After a full and uninterrupted presentation, we'll take questions from the committee. Then open the floor to members of the public. Once the public questions and concerns conclude, we will then move on to the business section, in which only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter. Following this discussion, we will take a motion, if we have quorum, followed by voting by the committee. The voting resolution put forth by the committee will then be presented and take to vote to the full board, which will be the final position of the Manhattan Community Board 5. Our next full board meeting is Thursday, June 12th at 6 p.m. So go ahead with our first item on our agenda today, is to discuss the Bill 1096, relation to protecting our vested health insurance coverage and contributions of retired employees of New York City. We have a speaker here to present for us. So if you could introduce yourself.
I'm Marcia Biederman from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. And thanks for inviting me to talk about the bill we have proposed in the city council, and we need your help and support with it. So if I would like to share what I've handed out here in person to the committee. Do I turn off I'm sorry that I'm not so adept at this.
Okay.
I would like to share this.
Yep. So
The attorney.
you open this up big and there, no, that'll leave it. So that the square that's next to it. One more to the right here. That one.
Okay.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you should have a share choice right there, that big green arrow. And then you should select what you want to share, which looks to be like that.
Right.
And click share.
Okay.
And I think that should work.
Okay. Thanks for your patience and
Just make sure
thank you
that
for
works.
your help. Yeah.
It's trying. There we go.
Okay. And can the people who are not present hear me now? I hope so, or if they let us know.
Yeah,
Okay.
these mics pick up and then they're able to see what's on your screen.
Okay, all right. So, I represent a group, that has 250,000 members online, and which is exactly the number of municipal retirees who are asking you to help us preserve our health benefits. And this is what we have had so far. Let me just digress and tell you that retirees from public service, these would be teachers, cops, firefighters, clerks, anyone who works for the city long enough to retire and is now 65 or older or disabled, qualifies for Medicare, just as all Americans who have paid into the system qualify for it. But the problem with just Medicare is wonderful and we want to keep it. That's why I'm here. It's not quite enough because it covers 80% of your medical and hospital bills. So the question is, what do you do with the other 20% of the bills, which could be staggering? So this is why at certain times of the year, you might see all these television ads for Medicare Advantage, which is a relatively new product that takes over. It's a privatized plan that companies like US Healthcare and Aetna run, and they will take the public monies that you earned for Medicare Part A and Part B and give you what they say is 100% coverage. So that's very tempting for people. But since the 1960s, New York City retirees have had something much better called a Medigap plan. So what we have is traditional Medicare. We go to a doctor or a hospital and show our card with Medicare Part A and Part B. And the city pays for a supplement that's called Emblem Senior Care. That's our secondary insurance. So primary is Medicare, which you don't have to be a city retiree, of course, to get. You have to be 65 years old or or older, you have to be vested in it. And then we have always prized and depended on this 20% Medigap plan. Now, this is being threatened with removal, because I can't go into the whole history now, but a bargain was made with some of our less foresighted labor leaders of the larger unions, and it affects all retirees, even if they weren't in a union. And we have people who are managers and never belonged to a union, they're city retirees. And what happened was that many years ago, around 2014, 2016, a deal was struck that the largest labor unions, including the UFT, DC 37, and the sanitation workers, who control the municipal labor council, bargained away retiree benefits in return for a small raise that year for teachers, and a couple of years later for the clerks and other workers who work for DC 37. And so they got like 3% raises. They're barely enough to keep up with the cost of living. And in return, the Municipal Labor Committee, without consulting, this didn't need ratification by rank and file members. They said, we will realize $600 million in savings every year into eternity. If you give us this raise now, we'll find cost savings in health benefits. And how do they find them? By threatening, this was the planning to one day just push a button and throw all of us that had Medicare plus a supplement into Medicare Advantage. Now, alarms went up from just certain retirees who got wind of this. It really wasn't publicized. And they started a Facebook group. And thousands and thousands of people who were alarmed because we started getting letters about this joined the Facebook group, and we hired a lawyer to try to stop it. And we have stopped it for 4 years. But the only thing that's standing between me and a Medicare Advantage plan, rather than I'd have to give up my red, white, and blue Medicare card that I worked so hard for and get one of these, it's really an inferior plan. Many judges in New York State have already accepted our description of it as inferior. Medicare Advantage usually requires prior authorizations so that your doctor has to get on the phone instead of treating you. They might, a clerk or an AI bot somewhere might think that a procedure that your physician thinks is necessary for your treatment is not necessary. So it's prior authorizations and limited networks. People who work for the city of New York retire all over the United States and in Puerto Rico, some of the US possessions. And right now, their Medicare plus supplement works beautifully there. Then if you've retired to South Carolina, you might not be able to find, supposedly they get an extended service area. But in point of fact, retirees have asked their doctors, will you take Medicare Advantage? And they said, no, we will not. So we're going to have limited access to providers, and we're going to have prior authorizations. So this is what we've won a lot of court cases, but it's not enough. We want to enshrine this in the city code. I need help again, I think, getting rid of this little, should I just minimize it?
You can drag it. If you just drag it
Okay,
wherever
good.
you.
All right, there we go. All right, and this is the handout. So the city administrative code has long said for decades, this 12-126 and the local laws, health insurance coverage for city employees, persons retired from city employment, and dependents of such employees and retirees. What the city will pay the entire cost of health insurance coverage for city employees, city retirees, and their dependents, not to exceed 100% of the full cost of HIP HMO on a category basis. So, and that's supposed to be plain language, but it's not plain enough. So I'll just, what it means is whether you're an active worker or retired from city work, you you can be covered 100% by the city. You don't have to pay for your medical insurance. But this always meant to us that we got a list of plans that we could choose upon retirement. I'm a retired teacher from the UFT. I also taught for PSC CUNY, but I retired from the UFT. And when I went for my pension consultations, I was constantly told, you can choose from, there's a list of 5 different plans, but almost everybody chooses traditional Medicare plus the Medigap. Almost, it's like over 95%. You could choose a Medicare Advantage plan if you wanted to. It was in the menu, but very few people went for it. And it's up to a certain benchmark. Some people wanted really, they wanted some frills. So they paid a little extra for themselves and the dependent every month. Now, what happened is 4 years ago, we were told that if we wanted to keep what we had, the Medicare plus the Medigap, we had to pay up. Like the city wasn't going to pay anymore, even though it wasn't over the benchmark. They decided that they could change it. And they said that right now they're arguing in court. Well, we never guaranteed it for the rest of your life. We just said you will in retirement. We're getting to the point now, we're just parsing words in court. So we want it to read and spell it out. This would really be plain language. This bill would amend the administrative code to preserve healthcare choice for retirees from city service. The bill provides that the city must offer Medicare eligible city retirees and their Medicare eligible dependents at least one Medigap plan with benefits equivalent to or better than those available to city retirees and their dependents as of December 31st, 2021, because that's when our troubles began. Our troubles began in December 2021 when they wanted us to pay up. And what did we do? We went to court. So that I'm be happy to answer questions, but I just want to show you that we got press. This was the second time. We won 7 different court cases, starting in the New York State Supreme Court, and then going to sustaining, and the city keeps appealing. The city appealed, we went to the appellate division of the Supreme Court. Then they took it to the Court of Appeals in Albany. We fought their appeal there, but they just keep fighting us, and they just keep, this is the city, just keeps trying to work around it and impose copays, which are the same, really, really hefty copays, which are the same as making us pay premiums that we never had before. We need the law change. This is the history. This is from back in 2023. We were expecting the temporary restraining order. We got a temporary restraining order. We got a permanent restraining order. Now, this is from last week. Oh, this is a little early, an intermediate point. We now have 4 cases in the courts. The city has a huge salaried legal staff. We pay our lawyers ourselves. Did I mention 4 cases? It's been more, this was in the middle of the battle. It's been more than 4 now. And 2 weeks ago, all these retirees with canes and walkers went up to Albany on a bus and heard the oral arguments and what is now the final case. But I saw it on videotapes. The justices looked hostile toward our lawyer. We could lose. It really depends on what the justice ate that for breakfast that morning, or I don't know, but we need your help because the city council hasn't helped so far. I think one of the council members who represents you is Gail Brewer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mhm.
She is on our bill, but we only have,
And Eric Botcher.
And Boston.
oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. And there's a group that helps with change Butcher's mind. No, he's wonderful. I love him, but he was no. And then I think there's a large building, a residential building in Manhattan West or something, and they really organized and they helped change his mind. Now, Eric Botcher and Gail Brewer, then they're showing courage because Adrienne Adams, the speaker, you know, bills herself as a progressive. She's running for mayor now. And she says she's progressive and trying to help middle income New Yorkers. She has been against us from the very beginning. And this is just speculation. I don't have documentation, but District 37 endorsed her. And they're three big unions made this deal. They didn't consult with the little unions on the municipal labor committee. And one of them is DC 37, Henry Garrido. And he supports Adrienne Adams very heavily, and she won't let this bill even get out of committee, comes to a hearing. People tell us they're terrified by her. We had a similar bill a year ago. If people got on the bill, she would change their office to some basement without a window. You know, speakers do this. That's how they wield power. That's how they whip their caucuses into line. I realize it's all legal, but we need the community to back us and just make a resolution supporting us. That's what I'm here to ask.
And thank you very much. So we'll go next with some questions from the committee.
I have a question, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to speak for the city's position. Obviously, the city is advocating for its position because they perceive that they will get some sort of cost savings. Do you know the number that they're?
600 million a year. They're
Okay, so that's
sticking
the
with
number.
it.
Okay.
Now, I think, I'm not sure about this. There have been, Brad Lander supports us. He's the controller.
Mhm, yep.
There have been skeptical
Skepticism about
comments about, whether that projection is real or made up, yeah.
Got it.
And the other, but I'm glad you asked it, but the other point is savings on the retirees' backs.
Mhm.
I mean, this is wrong. They obviously did this because they thought we wouldn't fight back, and it's a miracle that we did. Because we're all over the country and in some other places. And this amazing leader emerged, a former EMT named Marianne Pizzatola, and she organized this. You know, she's like a once in a generation leader. And we're all pro-union all the way, but these union leaders are not what labor should, this is not what labor should be about.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And it's kind of on the other side. We don't have the other side to present to us. Can you give us some information and data as to why they want to cut the cost? And then you said that the second question is, now you have to fund and everything else. Can you give some numerical components?
Well, I would say, okay, when we had to pay up to keep our Medigap, which we didn't because the courts put a stop to it. It's about $191 a person. So that's what it was 4 years ago. So let's say 200 now. The cost of a premium for a retiree and the retiree's dependent, if any, I'm married. My husband is also a retired city worker, so we're not dependents of each other. We each earned it anyway. But there are lots of people who enroll their spouses. It's about $200 each. That's cheap, and it hasn't skyrocketed. A lot of time we hear people on the other side saying costs have skyrocketed. Well, all kinds of healthcare costs have skyrocketed, that's for sure. But when you talk about the cost of the premium, you can see it online by looking for COBRA, like if people lose their benefit. Yeah, so it's about the same. It has not skyrocketed. We're of course, we don't like, they try to divide us against the active workers, have one side blaming the other. When I was an active worker, my insurance cost the city much more, of course, because now I have Medicare and that's 80%. So it's,
So this 200, sorry, I just want to make sure I understand too. So the roughly 200 of the pay up now that has started since around December.
well, we never had to pay it.
You never had to pay that.
And because we were never under Medicare Advantage, they never pressed that button that auto enrolled us, but they're waiting.
That is now because of, they're trying to take away the Medigap, which.
Yes.
Which you didn't have to pay zero into, and you got 100% coverage.
Yes, we do.
You pay your.
The city paid that
deductibles or whatever.
$200 a month for
The city will pay
me.
for that.
Yes,
So now this approximate 200 per month would be what the Medicare Advantage is going to
no,
cost.
Medicare Advantage wouldn't cost the city anything, but that,
That's-
I
that's
forgot
the
to
reason.
say that.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's where that's where the savings or
Mhm.
whatever you wanna call it, the financial incentive is. Yes,
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
So you mentioned, so when it comes to the individuals, the difference between the the standard Medicare plus Medigap versus Medicare Advantage. You mentioned pre-authorization, you mentioned lack of providers. Is there, and maybe I'm wrong, isn't there also a drug, like you're forced onto a replacement or
Yeah,
generics or
yeah,
something?
I'm not qualified to talk about that. Right now, each of the unions has a different drug plan.
Okay.
And they have to be creditable, I know
Got it,
that,
okay.
and DC 37 keeps saying there's this credible, you know, we never were put into Medicare Advantage.
Right.
But we fear that if we are, the DC 37 retirees, who are some of the lowest income retirees, because a lot of them didn't need a college education for their job, they started working for the city right out of high school. And DC 37 is a big umbrella that covers like all kinds of jobs, but some of them very low paying. Anyway, we think they're gonna have to pay up for a drug plan because
Okay.
right now their drug plan is not creditable. But I'm not an expert on
Oh, that's
that.
okay. I was
Yeah,
just trying to get the full
Right,
contour
yeah.
of like what the issues are.
That is an
with
issue.
different- Yeah, okay.
But not one that I know that much about. Yeah,
So, can you explain so currently you're in the Court of Appeals,
right.
which is the final court,
That's right.
and they will make their decision,
Soon.
and you are feeling that it
Could go either way.
could go either way, and so
Yeah.
this legislation is to force the city to continue, paying for Medigap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. It could go either way, and then also the city has some other legal things that they can do, like, we'll be in court because they're like all the co-pays, which replace the premiums, they're like workarounds. And the city the unions are suing the city now about the $600 million, like they're doing a preemptive law. Are any of you lawyers or, because this boggles my mind. But the union, you know, the big three, UFT, sanitation, UFT says it's not for Medicare Advantage, but it is. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. They said they withdrew their support. But why is Michael Mulgrew, the president of the UFT, his name's always on the stationery supporting it? He says it's just stationary. At any rate, they're suing the city and saying they can't find the $600 million and shouldn't be responsible for it because those pesky retirees are keeping them in court. So, but they have a contract with Aetna, and Aetna's ready, so.
Any other questions from the
Yeah.
committee regarding the bill that we're being asked to support? Mike,
So is one of the options that the city has, if they lose at the Court of Appeals, to go to the US Supreme Court, or is that?
No,
No, it stops at,
no, that's it. That's the
Stop.
end. And that's why, you know, we really need the city council to pass this bill.
And you
when-
said,
sorry, when is this occurring? When is this? going?
They never, the
there a
oral
date?
arguments were 2 weeks ago, and we never know when the decision is gonna be handed down, but soon. I would say probably before the summer.
Is there any more, public kind of, are you guys going to each community board? Or are you holding your own kind of conferences, or what are you
We're,
guys doing in the meantime?
that's a great question. We right now are putting emphasis on the community boards, and it's hard with the schedules and the summer's coming, and the bill the bill may have to be reintroduced again. We had a previous bill that, I guess when a session is over, somebody has to introduce it again. We're always communicating and rallying online. We have
So
We
this
have a
is any-
Facebook page, yeah.
Okay.
And our leader has Friday night chats. She also does a lot of service, just answering people's questions and helping them. But every Friday night, thousands of people listen to our leader, and she's just amazing. And she keeps everybody going.
Great.
I mean,
Yeah.
I will say,
Mhm.
this is for us,
Uh-huh.
you know, we wrote a letter on this issue in March. I just found it on March of on March of 24.
Really?
Oh, I was on.
But it was on the
I was
previous
on.
bill.
committee.
Oh, 1099.
Exactly, so it was on
Yeah.
in the line.
Okay.
I just pulled it up.
Thanks.
So, you know, we're on record on that issue, but the bill needs to be reintroduced
Okay,
and it has different and more sponsors now and, you know, our advocacy helps it. Because
Was
as
our
you saw,
letter
it timed out,
was, okay,
I
yeah.
timed out last
Mhm,
time and
yeah.
we didn't take it to the floor,
Got
and
it.
didn't vote on it,
Was
so.
our letter of support on the same guidelines as what we're discussing today?
Yeah, I mean, I can
I think it's,
I can read it.
I think
but
it's
it was
identical.
36 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstaining. It was, you know, it mentioned the 25, the 250,000 people and the same about, you know, the Advantage versus the Medigap, the Medigap. So this would be us re-upping that
Reinforcing
letter.
our.
And, well, because it's a new bill now, it's a new session, and there are new co-sponsors.
Well, since October, but yeah, we want to
Right.
get your support this session. Yes,
Thank you for finding.
I,
Yeah.
Did we
yeah, I
do
didn't know
a
that.
Reso, or did we do a letter?
We did it as a reso.
Yeah.
We did it as a letter. No, it's a reso, but it was sent to
All
both
the constituencies.
Adamses, Adrian and Mayor Adams. And we put Rivera, Botcher, Powers, on it.
Okay. Any other members come, yeah?
Hi, so I have a couple of questions. The
Thank you.
Medicare Advantage charges me, I have to pay off my social security every month. By the
Yeah.
way, the members, retiree members have social security, right?
Yeah,
And have a pension
yeah,
on top of that.
right. Well, which varies, from,
I know, I got
Yeah.
buckets, I got
well,
nothing.
I realize.
Okay,
I
I'm just,
realize
that's part of my question.
But like the clerks in DC 37 get what you'd call pensions, but
They
they're not.
get a pension, they get social security,
Hmm.
and if they had this, they would have, what I have, they would have to pay extra, like me, right? They would have to pay for it.
Can I see your
The-
card?
For the
Medicare
difference of the
Advantage.
20%.
Yeah,
that
you got-
doesn't-
No,
No,
no.
straight Medicare Advantage.
This is Medicare Advantage, which,
What you're talking about, you were talking about Medicare Advantage.
this is first of all, no, it's not, this is a prescription card. So you're showing me this is drugs only.
No,
What's the question, Mike?
Am I-
so my question is, if retirees were herded into this against their what they want, would they have to pay an additional out-of-pocket for the monthly, like?
Oh, no, they would love us to be in Medicare Advantage.
So no, they wouldn't have to pay anything.
They don't have to pay anything. We
So-
don't have to pay anything.
So
Yeah.
if you got put into this, you wouldn't have to pay.
We wouldn't, right, correct.
The problem is that it doesn't cover
limitation.
enough doctors out in the sticks.
Right now, we're not
And-
paying either,
Exactly.
yeah.
The out-of-state limitations if the retirees move out of state.
Right,
Those kind of-
And the
right,
author,
right.
and the
And-
pre-authorization.
Authorization.
And when they signed up for, in the beginning, they might not have taken a job if they
But that's-
knew that they might have. So there's all
That's
kinds of
exactly-
stuff.
And that's exactly our argument. You could have argued.
I'm not as dumb as I-
That's it, yes,
So-
this promise was made.
So this is not a terrible plan.
Okay.
All right, I mean, I got my kidney removed the other day and it's paid for the whole thing
Great.
pretty much. So it's not a terrible plan, and if they get stuck with this, against what you want.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Okay.
I'm glad you like it. It was always.
My word to the member of
If people
the,
want it, we
but-
always had some
but
Medicare
it would be
Advantage
better
on the
for
menu.
them if they had a much better plan, and I get it. I just wanted to make sure I understood all of the ramifications. Thank you.
Sure, of course. Let's stay on questions if we can, so we can just stay on track here. Another question?
Yeah. Two different things, just to follow up on Mike's ideas. If you paid the $200 a month premium, would you also have to pay co-payment?
We can't, the courts already ruled that went to the Court of Appeals, they can't make us pay up.
I can't make it pay.
Because it's a violation of that city,
Contract.
the existing city law, that case is over.
Okay,
They cannot, that's called pay up, they can't do it.
so they
It's
can't
because
charge you
it's
for-
like unconstitutional, it's against the city charter. That went through the Court of Appeals,
Okay,
yeah,
so we're not talking about the 200 premium anymore.
not anymore.
So we're
yeah.
talking about co-pays? Or
Well, we feel that they have introduced a lot of copays that never existed before, so there might be another and we do have another case. I'm not sure where that is right now, but especially for people who are getting chemo or,
For your 20%, the
it-
Medigap is
yeah,
introducing all these. is what
Yes.
You're saying. That's-
yes,
Sorry, just, I need everybody to kind of understand where that's. coming
right,
from.
right.
So even though you've been able to obtain the Medigap with the Medicare to create the 80 and the 20, that 20 now is costing money.
Correct.
So, and they can keep pushing you up, so then you say, okay, well, we'll go into the Advantage plan with the restrictions because this is getting too much and now we'll
Yeah,
go to this other
they-
bucket, right? Okay,
It's like a poison,
so.
they're poisoning
we
it,
can-
poison pill,
so I
yeah.
can kind of just summarize that, that's
That's
what you're
exactly-
trying to.
That's
what you're
exactly
trying to-
correct. Yes.
Any other questions?
And
Yeah, no, go ahead.
my other question is to do with the municipal labor committee. Are the retirees organizing somehow within the labor unions to have representation on the committee?
Rank and file never was represented on that committee. It was always leaders.
Right,
But they have weighted voting. We would like we would like the public to know more about it and to reconsider whether we need, I think there could be a great municipal labor committee, but looking at the workings of the one we have now, we try to draw press attention to it. We do get more, not in the Daily News only. They covered us from the beginning. They were wonderful, but it's like sick and tired of it. It's like not new anymore. So when we get a court win, then we get mainstream media. Otherwise we get like Work Bites, The Chief, we do get bloggers. And so, yes, we're trying to scrutinize the municipal labor committee, and we've rallied and picketed and had trucks opposing DC 37's president, Henry Garrido. And we've supported an opposition candidate to Michael Mulgrew of the UFT, who says he's against Medicare Advantage, but doesn't act like it. And that election is going on right now.
You have another question?
I was just, I'm sorry, but what is the actual case before the Court of Appeals now? Is that for it's the Medigap has been removed as an option?
Yes, they called it the nuclear option. And the city never thought that they proposed this. All options are off the table except Medicare Advantage.
Okay, so that's the case now before the Court of
Yes.
Appeals, is to reinstate the option. of
I think the
Medigap.
case
No,
is that
that-
fit
to
by
eliminate all
of the
choice.
administrative code.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the actual
Yeah.
legal
Oh, yeah, yeah.
argument is that it is in violation of the what was done is in violation of the administrative code.
Okay,
Well, it's based on promissory estoppel. It's that we were given a promise that, as Mike said, we relied on some people to take the job. Some people don't think about retirement when they're young, but some people do.
Right.
And then some people
Oh.
started as a second career, like me, and they are thinking about retirement when they enter. So, yeah, they do look at things like that. But they call it the nuclear option because I think the city never wanted to be this cruel. And to eliminate all options except, because right now, if you want Medicare Advantage, it's one of the 10 options. The city always liked a lot of options, but almost everybody went for the Medigap.
Any other questions? comments. We have one attendee. Any questions or comments from anybody online? Oh, okay, sorry, 1 second. Go ahead, Charles, you can speak. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you now.
Yeah, I'm just very supportive. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna comment that, I,
Can we speak up here, please, a little louder?
sure, this committee is on record with this board is on record with this. I think we can I think we can and should continue to advocate for this. I think it's a very compelling argument. I think it's my understanding that the last time this came before back, I was not on the committee, but I remember, I think I went to the meeting. Maybe Julie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Renee had tried to invite someone from the city to even speak, to provide their side, and they declined. So, I think this is something this come forward, we've set a ton of precedent, and we should continue to do that.
Go ahead and make a motion.
Sure, I think I'll make a motion that we reiterate and republish and resend the letter that we already have. We can update it with the new information or new numbers that we heard tonight. I would argue that we should leave out the more process-driven stuff about the labor board and things like that. I think that's sort of out of our purview. But that simply advocating for the retirees to retain the plans that they have, I think we should put that in the form of a letter.
And second.
Second.
Good. You can go to a vote.
Oh, do you want me to do it?
We have quorum, sure, thanks.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Julie,
Yes.
Mike Greeley,
Yes.
Mike Kavak.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. I'm a yes. Tiffany,
Yes.
Yoden.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5 yeses and 1 abstention.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, Ashley, so,
So we don't have a
Thank-
quorum.
yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah,
We have
we have
6.
6. We make quorum. So thank you for coming. So the next step is obviously we'll take this to full board, exec, next week, and then full board the following, week on Thursday. So you're always welcome to come to the full board and speak during the, public session in the beginning. You're kind of limited on a couple minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
During those ones, so, but you're welcome to join us and, speak again.
I'm gonna try to make it. I was just,
It's on the 12th.
Yep, the 12th is.
well, I'd be very pleased. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah.
coming to come in for a second.
And my pleasure.
Okay, so our second item, which we might be able to vote on something tonight, and again, I'm not gonna try to keep people here long because we know the streets and. But very, very important topic, and we did have to discuss it today because, there will be, a final vote before we have our next meeting. So just, this is a discussion on the rent guidelines, of the board, but rent guidelines board, proposed the rent increase. So on April 30th, the board met and they voted on order 57 and 55, which is rent stabilization, New York City, apartment loss and hotels. And, this was a new preliminary, rent guideline. They had a meeting this morning. Yaron, thank you for posting that. It is a really quick meeting. I was on it as well. And it was just the committee members of the board. There's 9, just so you know what the board is, comprised of. There's 9 members representing tenants, landlords, and public. And they're tasked with balancing these, competing interests. The meeting, they've had a lot of meetings, so they've showed a lot of complexities involving the setting of the fair rent guidelines to consider for both tenant affordability and for landlord sustainability. So the preliminary vote today was to change what was initially proposed. I'm gonna put this up so you can see it. What was initially proposed on April 30th. So this vote today did pass, for the new vote and the final vote to be what I'm gonna put up now. There are gonna be a bunch of public hearings, in the interim, which I sent around, but I'll send them around again, so people can hear them. We do not meet again, and so it is important for us to, I mean, it's not a resolution, but to write a letter in support or not in support of, so we can get it to our constituents and kind of see if we have a stance on this. If we're gonna speak at all as far as Manhattan Community Ward 5, it would be done now. So the public had a ton of engagement, during the meeting so far. Again, both tenants and landlord utilized, these platforms to advocate for their respective positions, highlighting the democratic nature of the proceedings. In the tenants' testimonies, a lot of tenants attended the meetings and voiced their opposition to the proposed rent hikes. Many of them shared personal stories highlighting financial strains that they experienced, emphasizing that the modest increase could jeopardize their housing stability. Landlords and property owners argued that rent increases are necessary to cover rising operational costs that include maintenance, tax, utilities, and that without these adjustments, the quality and safety of housing could be deteriorated. So those were arguments on both sides, and there's been a bunch of them. Let me now pull this up so I can show you. Let me see. I'll leave the chats in. Okay, that's fine. So this was the summary. So at the April 30th meeting, this is what the end result was, is what was being proposed and was voted on and passed until they decided to try to put a new vote in for a change. So for Order 55, that includes rent stabilized apartments and lofts. And order number 57, and then for hotels is order number 55. So there's two different votes on it because of how they group them. So with rent stabilized apartment guidelines, they opted to continue the same choice of 1.75 to 4.75% increase. So the proposal is to not change the 1-year leases regardless of what they heard from either side. The request is that they now are proposing to decrease the 2-year lease options to 3.75 from 4.75 that was agreed upon before. Same goes for the rent stabilized lofts. And then keeping all the hotel, which is order number 55, they're all 0%. I did just make some notes from the meeting. Only one of the committee members spoke up during that, and again, you can read, he stated that he was disappointed that the number was not decreased with even more than that, and that the 1-year leases were not being looked at as needing to be decreased either, and that the university is struggling, and he felt it was a missed opportunity. They made a motion to restart the process of this guideline, which is to go into effect. And the order 57 passed 5-3-1, and the order 55 passed 6-2-1. So I don't know if anybody's had more time to look at this. We kind of try to circulate everything today as fast as we could, especially with the update from the meeting today. Questions? Yes, fire.
Yeah, no, it's a really tough, every year, this is like a really tough issue, and there's always a lot of press about this, and there's a lot of like, and the landlords say this, and Mike and I were talking before the meeting, and there's an article in the Post about, you know, and again, it's the Post, you have to take the sources into account, but about the number of rent stabilized units that are gonna end up in foreclosure.
Yes.
You know, now, even if they're in foreclosure and the bank takes over, they still have to remain rent stabilized,
Sure.
but, you know, but if people are walking away from the building, they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna do any maintenance on the building, if no
Sure.
one has spent, effectively, no one owns it.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, rent's going up, things like that. So anyway, it's very tricky. My question, which maybe we can't answer in here, is do community boards typically weigh in on this? It's an annual thing.
Yeah.
Have we weighed in on it? Is anyone listening to us? Does anyone care?
Now, I tried to look earlier today to see if we had, since this is year one on Bex. I don't know, Julie, if you remember if they ever come to the board before or to discuss it.
No, but I know somebody who sits on the rent guidelines board.
I
Okay.
know somebody who,
Sits on the-
Sits on the-
guideline board.
Sits on the board we're talking about that just voted for that.
The rec guideline board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
interesting, I
is this
just,
something, yeah, so this is a discussion. Is it
Yeah.
something, I don't know if the other community boards have. I mean, I didn't see it on any, on the
Yeah.
agendas that I just try to peek at real quick,
Yeah.
for the last month. A couple of the other districts,
I
but
will testify, so I don't see why we couldn't provide.
no. of
Yeah,
course, We
yeah,
totally
yeah, I
could,
just-
I'm just wondering.
we were wondering if anybody-
That's like
if
what
anybody
the
has.
precedent was.
sure.
Yeah, okay.
But if we did, so to bring it up today, like I said, was if we want to take a stance to support or not support decreasing the 2-year lease, which is basically the only thing that does change from their April proposal. We would need to do that as a committee
Yeah.
today, so we can take it to full board. Because they have, let's see, June 5th, 9th, 12th, and 17th, more public hearings. And then the final hearing and voting is on June 25th. So again, we won't have another meeting before then or another full board. So if we, as a committee, wanted to have a voice either for or against, now would be the time. So,
I also was trying to look at this and I couldn't find this. I don't know if anyone, they're not gonna know the number off the top of their head, but I was trying to see how many rent stabilized units were actually in our district
yeah,
and how much of our housing was rent stabilized. That's actually a very,
that's
without going building by building, and it's not an.
Fine. Well, you can just-
Well, you can find every
Yeah.
building in New York that's rent stabilized. It's just. So then I tried to do it by proxy, so it's like all of these buildings tend to have been built before 1974, yeah.
Mhm.
We have a fellow on land use, and that was one of her tasks to
Oh.
find like,
Did she?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Again, because I think we even asked her to find the AMI level of the.
Yes,
the actual
Right,
rent.
right.
That would be some-
So I tried to sort of. Do like a rough approximation because they have to have 10 units and it has to be built, I
Yeah.
think, before 1974. You know, Manhattan has fairly old housing
Yeah.
stock, so I don't, it's just, it's very hard.
We don't
to-
know how
Yeah.
many
Yeah,
we're helping or what.
I was
not
just trying to
helping, but-
assess like how much of our district is rent stabilized and that was extremely difficult to assess. So that it just makes me hard to think about. Obviously, rent is a problem.
Mhm.
Obviously, I want to get behind, I want to get behind keeping rent control. It's hard for me as a board member to think about, well, we don't know how much of how much of the impact is in our district and our remit is our district at the end of the day. It seems like there's just a lot of questions.
Yeah, and I didn't hear, I didn't listen in on the other hearings. I just, this just passed my desk basically this last few days, and so I started reading up on it, so I haven't listened intently to the other, opposition
Yeah.
or for
And
it.
this is not a criticism of you, just to be clear, yeah.
No, I wasn't thinking, no, not that at all.
Oh,
I'm just saying, so it's hard for me to say. Like, even have an understanding as, so why, if we're gonna increase a 2-year, not a 1-year. What's the like, what is the difference? What is the thought behind that? Why now do they wanna decrease the one, not the other?
why,
Who does it help?
Well, I think
Does
that
not help.
sorry, what were you gonna say?
1,316 stabilized units in
Hey.
special district areas across 28 buildings. A majority held stabilized units in single digits.
Oh,
That's all, and now that's in community group five?
that's just Midtown
Midtown
South.
South.
Oh, that's just in the Midtown
Oh.
South district. That's
Oh,
not in the
Midtown
district. That's just in the mid, but that's helpful. That's,
So,
so very little stabilized.
very little.
Yeah, but there's a total
But
very
there's-
little in our district too.
In the special district areas, so it might be just the special district areas.
Which is what Midtown South and Midtown East.
Well. it could-
Because her task was to
Midtown-
find
special
all
Midtown
affordable housing
and
districts, so.
Garment District and Midtown.
Orange is a special district.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It's not been passed yet for Midtown South.
Oh,
So,
right,
Garment
right.
District
So
still-
my, so what is it?
Nobody lives there, it's.
Right, no, I know.
So that's just like a sixth of what
Right.
might be.
So I think I can sort of answer your question. I mean, I think in the original meeting. They were, the board, and I went back and looked, and the board has only a few times done 0%. I think that was in the middle of COVID.
Mm.
So the board almost never recommends 0%.
Yeah.
And they present these ranges. So for a 1-year lease. A lower range than a 2-year lease because someone's getting locked in for 2 years and missing that second, right?
Mhm.
And I think the change between the first meeting and now is just to bring that 2-year lease range a little lower. So the idea was that the people on the board felt that the 1-year range was low enough because it allows that it's 1.75.
Yes.
And then it was to bring that 2-year range down, so it could be as low as 3.75. Now, clearly, some people think that if you look at the bottom numbers, let's just talk about the bottom numbers. Look at the bottom numbers, that a 1-year lease going up 1.75%, and a 2-year lease or a 2-year lease going up 3.75%. Some people think that's still too much,
Yeah.
and that's what we can debate. But I think that was the logic in changing the ranges
Yeah, because the old bottom number was 4.75.
last year.
Yeah, what?
Oh, the old one, yes, the
Month
one from
ago.
the previous meeting, right, so they brought the bottom number.
So
Bring the
if,
bottom number down.
if the choice was just between the bottom number, why would a tenant choose 4.75 2-year lease? If they can choose a 1.75
For 1 year.
for a
Well-
1-year lease, and then you would just, cause you're.
What's a
trying to-
risk that next year?
They don't,
go
really-
more.
exactly, it's a
Right.
risk, cause they don't change, and the landlords can always pick the top number. And so, if they have a range, it's not up to the rentee how much they're gonna increase it.
No, the board decides that, but then the rentee decides, am I gonna do a 1-year or 2-year?
Yes, but the landlords can still make it at the highest percentage. So which still tops you at 7.7.
Which is the risk you're
Which is the
taking,
risk you're
if you-
taking.
so you're like, okay, I get,
Oh, I thought the next vote is gonna pick one number in each.
no,
Oh, no, it's a
no,
range.
it's always a range.
It's a range. Mhm.
And what's the difference between,
I never done.
The
with range.
lower
If I
number
would've
and the
done
Here
it
it's not
one-
presented to you as a
We know.
Yeah,
renter.
the percentage of what the
Separate.
rent is.
Ah,
yeah,
No,
You
it
don't
doesn't
get to
matter. It's-
negotiate.
so there's a range,
Mhm.
4.7 or 3.75 to
Mhm.
7 point something. What determines if you're going up 4% and you're going up 7%?
The landlord,
The landlords.
So the landlord can choose?
yeah,
that's new to me.
So every landlord's gonna choose 7, no?
I don't think they
Am I
do,
missing something
They-
there?
Yeah,
They don't,
no, because they have to balance it with vacancy.
Yeah.
So if they think
In
that,
New York, vacancies, 1% or what's it, even less?
but
it is, but still,
So there's no bound, they'll all pick the 7%.
it is now I was trying, what's this last year's, 2024.
do they pick the, okay, let's look,
because I
Interest.
always thought they picked one number for each every year.
let me look,
Well,
This is
hold
the
on.
preliminary range, and now they're debating what the final
maybe
number,
I'm sorry, fine.
because I never heard of them.
Yeah, I don't understand why
I've-
there's a range
I've
in there at all.
seen the leases that do that, and I've seen some that increase a lot because they can't. But
Oh, no, it is a single number,
it's.
yeah, he's right,
Oh,
so the
So
number will
they-
be in that range. They will pick us on June 25th, they will pick that number.
So they're gonna pick one number
Correct.
between the two.
Yeah.
that they
Yeah,
will pick
thank
for the
you, thank
1
you.
and the 2.
so sorry.
That makes sense.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I don't know how I'm.
Good.
I thought the landlord gets to choose, what?
You could have done that
Oh,
earlier. You
yeah,
could've-
I was all prepared.
Why not? For 13 years, I never did arrange.
Okay, so they're low, they wanna lower it for the 2 years, so potentially a range can be lower and,
Okay, yeah, that's
Or-
what I'm trying to
yeah,
get to.
I mean, for the, so the pinpoint that they actually pick for the 2 year can have a potential to be,
So if you pick like, if. Right, the newer numbers is 1.75 and 3.75. You're taking, you're gonna gauge the risk about, okay, next year will go up a certain amount because of inflation and all of this. So I'll lock in at 3.75.
okay,
But when it was at 4.75, there was more of a risk that the tenant won't take the 2-year lease
yes,
at the higher.
exactly, okay,
And they'll take the lower one and
Yes.
gamble on the next
Right,
year.
okay.
thank you,
So
for, yes.
this is benefits the landlords to push us to rent.
Push it around. Currently, the 1 year leases for, were this past year 2.75%, and the 2 years went up 5.25%. So that's.
And last time it
that's
was,
the numbers,
it was like 0. Let's look at the past. I'm just curious.
what the range was.
It's very, I mean, these are comparable with what they've been,
Yeah.
in other words.
I'm just in favor of them moving it down to 3.75.
Yes, definitely.
It makes more sense for the landlord, it makes more sense for the tenant
What?
to move it down from 4.75 to 3.75 increase.
Yeah, so 0 COVID, that first year of COVID was 0. But otherwise, the few years before is 1.5. 1.5, 0 from 20 into 21. 21 to 22, 1.5, 3.25 the following year, 3 the following year. I mean, this also probably tracks to inflation to some extent. 2.75 last year. Yeah.
Do you see the 2 year? Do you see how much the 2 year goes up?
Yep, so the 2 years before COVID, 2.5, COVID 0, then 2.5, then 5. Then 5.25.
So 2 years ago, people paid 5% to renew their lease.
Yep.
Last
1
year,
year lease,
5
5% lease.
in 20, at least that began in October of 22 was 5% higher than previously, a 2-year lease previous. That's what it means.
That was a 2 year lease to 5 years?
That was the 5% was 2 years.
It's the kind of average of sounds like the average of the 1 year lease is probably somewhere around 2.5 to 3 for 1 years, and then the 2 years kind of range because of COVID, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Except for
hard.
It's been higher.
Post COVID, it's been higher because again, it probably tracks with inflation. Yeah, it tracks with inflation. And insurance costs have gone up and maintenance costs. Anyway,
So, any like questions or comments or, do we think we want to write something in support of or not support of thoughts?
You know, what's interesting on this thing is politics is so crazy. There is an upside to every single argument, the one that she's talking about, and this one, and there's probably not, which makes it so easy to take a goddamn airplane and then do business with somebody. I don't wanna.
What are you
talk
doing with the
politics.
airplane?
What about the airplane?
I mean, as an example of some kind of deal going on. Somebody takes an airplane and
I
then
mean, from
passes, what,
Qatar?
or anyway, yes, that could happen.
Okay.
That could be.
I
all-
don't know what
that could
airplane
be
you were
one of the
talking
things.
about.
It's so easy.
yeah.
You know, I have a friend, I'm an old guy, and I have a friend, Lester. And Lester was the head of the Parking Violations Bureau, no, the Taxi and Limousine Commission,
Mhm.
TLC.
Yeah.
In the 1980s. And every single taxi had to, shit,
Yeah, we're still,
I didn't mention his last name. And every single taxi had to have a meter in that taxi. And several different companies were bidding
To put the meters.
to sell the city the meters to. And so one particular committee was, one particular vendor was chosen. And it turns out that my friend, whose name I'm not gonna mention again, was and spent some time in the Hooskow. And
Boy,
This
yeah.
not my only friend who spent time in the Hooskow growing up, but
I want to hear more about.
but these
Okay, let's-
politics is a hot tough thing.
Awesome.
Sorry about that, Les.
So do we have, I mean, do I have any opinion? I don't,
My comment is, I have opinions. I do not feel confident enough in those opinions to,
Write a letter.
write a letter, but you know, if this committee feels like it's gonna go in a particular direction, I'm not gonna stand in its way and I'll support it, but that's how I feel.
so let's each say how we kind of feel, so we know if we're going, what direction we're going in.
I only feel that I'm supported them lowering it from 4.75 to
Sure.
3.75. Other than that,
Right.
there's a whole lot of stuff and I'm not qualified
Okay,
to have an opinion on.
I agree. Okay, you doing the same thing?
Yeah.
You agree with the proposed change? We have nothing to do with,
Well, it
The
already
initial-
happened.
and it already
you know,
happened. we're just saying.
Amen.
If we want to support that, yeah, that they decrease or keep the same.
Amen to what Michael said.
Really?
Yeah, usually we will have a presentation, somebody,
Yeah.
some speaker
Mhm.
to provide feedback.
And. I mean, the only other thing is like, just let it set. Like,
I mean, I
full
think again,
board.
it feels uninformed, like ideally, we want rents to be affordable,
Yeah. Right.
absolutely,
Yeah.
but like. This is a tough one because I'm unclear, I think it sounds like we're all unclear a little bit of the trade-offs and we would need to talk. About that.
And when we were doing this and bringing this up today, it was more of. Discuss it and if we support, but. That already passed, it's just now,
Right.
are we, so the only thing we can really show support of is that we're supporting that 1% decrease.
Right, which
Because we
already
have
happened,
no,
right,
we have no, well, no, they voted yes to propose the change, but the final vote won't
Right.
happen until June 25th, which potentially could say no, and then the 2-year leases will stay at that higher
well,
number.
the two leases could also be 7.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do a letter that says,
Yeah.
we think you should be in the lowest, at the lowest number of both these ranges. That would be a letter that we could present to the
Yeah.
board, be like, these are your ranges, fine. You should choose the lowest number in each of the range, but I don't feel qualified
Yeah.
to say that.
When do they actually choose the number?
On June
Not the
25th.
range.
On
On
June
June
25th.
Okay.
Mhm. So they passed the vote to the changes of the range, and now on June 25th will be, and I apologize, I didn't have it clear sooner. Then June 25th, they'll actually pick what the number will be for the 1 and 2, and the orders of,
But now they're entitled to go as low as 375.
Correct.
but they would be entitled to. We do have, go ahead, Charles. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's my public comment. I was gonna say, there's a lot of news reports already came out today, just in the past few minutes from New York AM and New York Post and ABC News that apparently the Rent Guidelines Board have walked back the hikes and had a revote, and apparently the 1-year leases are gonna stay the same and the 2-year leases are gonna be at that 3-point level increase. But the other concern is, as a member of the public, I'm worried about, already landlords are saying they're going to hurt from this. But there was another article back on May 24th by the New York Post called Rent Stabilized Bloodbath, which is, when the rent increases are not a lot of these, apparently, according to that report, a lot of the landlords are foreclosing, walking away from these apartment buildings because I'd rather take the loss than have these units being unprofitable, and then what happens is then you lose rent stabilized apartments when these landlords just walk away from these buildings. So that's the other side of the coin, I guess. But there's a lot of articles out today about apparently the rent stabilized boards are not going to do huge increases after all. They walk them back apparently.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. They did have a quick about 10-minute board meeting this morning that's on YouTube saved, where they did pass it to lower the range. I think really it's just they now have so many meetings, they have 4 meetings, public hearings, and people who want to go voice their opinion on what the number should be picked
Yep.
as, then that's what
They should.
that's what we should do. That's what we should encourage people to go out and do. They have on the website, they have where you can write in responses and comment. You can show up in person. They have online. There's a lot of different access to voice your opinion on this. And this is all of New York City, not just our district, obviously. We all support, rent affordable housing. And so that's kind of where we stand on it. I don't know what help a letter necessarily would do. Because we can't really say specific unless we just want to voice the fact that we'd like to support the lower end of, that percentage to be what comes out of that final vote on June 25th. So, anybody else? Agree. So I don't think you need to write anything. I just think that if anybody has, show up and voice your concern, and then I'll report back on our July 1st meeting about it. How about that? New business.
I couldn't say any business.
He does that at full board.
I don't have
Do
one.
that here.
Yeah, he always is at full board.
What am I being
Next.
shut down for what?
Oh, no, nothing shut down. We said, do you have any new business?
Oh, okay. Now that you mention it. let's see. Full board meeting is on the
Well,
12th.
Yep.
So I do have a tour before then, a
Okay.
garment district tour. And Tiffany, you took that tour,
I
did you?
did. It was amazing.
New people,
Loved it.
from,
I took that tour too.
you took half of it. Second half,
Oh,
she could tell you, it's amazing. On the 5th, at the button, you know about the button? Yellow button? Yes?
Yeah.
You've taken my tour already?
No,
Yeah.
she learned about the yellow button from the meeting.
You know about the yellow button?
just
You
say
live-
yeah.
Just say yeah, just say yeah.
You- yeah.
Where, do you live in our district?
39th at 7.
On 7th Avenue in the garment district?
Yes.
There is a yellow button about the size of this room, 19 feet up in the sky, held up by a needle. It's also huge. And that's where I meet the groups at 10:30. If you're working that day, you're gonna miss a great tour. I got a lot of people signed up already. That would be the 5th, a Thursday, 10:30, and we visit a different factory,
Yeah,
flower factory.
all right.
New business.
My new
Okay.
business is to say that at our next meeting, we will have a new name.
No more Becks.
We will no longer be Bex because the budget will be a task force now. So it has not been picked. Mohit, myself and Brad and I have discussed a little bit, but if anybody wants to say anything or has a thought, I will take it to our discussion for
Me-
final
For
for
name?
final saying for what our committee is going to be, based on our point of interest, but that can be another time, but that's just what I wanted to say as far as that, and anybody else?
Cool.
Done, meeting adjourned, thanks, guys. Have a great night.